Welcome to the audio version of the Star Citizens Writer's Guide. I'm your host, Alyciana, also known as Sailor from the Mystic Worlds gaming blog. Begin transmission. Hello again, citizens. Time for another fact-filled odyssey through the Star Citizen universe. This week's installment is about the ne'er-do-wells, rapscallions, thieves, pirates, pushers, pimps, periwinkles? The hell with it. We're talking about criminals. As always, please consult our caveats before diving in. Errata. Here are a couple of companies that were missed in the list last week. Arrow and Ross Weapons Systems, family-oriented and affordable weapons manufacturer. Imagine if IKEA sold turrets for your car. They manufacture ship weapons, kinetic in energy, missiles. Grade, cheap to standard. MaxOx, weapons manufacturer. They are chasing that elusive military weapons contract, but their weapons are generally used by criminals, which hurts their PR a bit. They build mostly kinetic weapons for ships, 35mm dredge gun, as well as personal weapons, the MaxOx P4, their attempt to rebuild the iconic Bering rifle as an energy weapon. It's a rapid cycle energy-based submachine gun. They manufacture ship weapons, kinetic and energy, personal weapons. Grade, standard to quality. As far as quality levels, we went back and conformed the previous entry to comply with the following list, from worst to best: cheap, standard, quality, excellent, premium. Now on to this week's topic, crime. Times are tough. Citizens and civilians alike have fallen on hard times, and it's difficult to keep on the straight and narrow path when your family is starving. In addition, some just like to juke the system, carving out what they need or want for themselves. In short, there's no lack of reasons for why people turn to a life of crime. Crime appears in many forms. Though the methods may differ from world to world, system to system, there are drugs, thefts, murders, criminal organizations, and corruption in every corner of the known universe. To briefly recap the law enforcement side, planets are expected to police themselves. If a case should arise for inter-system justice, the advocacy will get involved. Some of the types of criminals. Pirates. Piracy is a growing epidemic in the UEE. Pirates can work solo or in groups known as packs. As far as criminals go, pirates are the most diverse. Each pack generally operates by a loosely specified set of rules, but there is little camaraderie between pirates, as they will steal from each other as often as they steal from civilians or tip the law on the competition without a moment's hesitation. Some operate by a code of one sort or another, but others could care less. Smugglers. Transport of illegal cargo has become a great way for haulers and shippers to earn credits on the side. The types of cargo that fall under this category can be anything from stolen merchandise, to illegal drugs, to contraband weapons to slaves. Sometimes they might not even know what they're transporting, just another crate slipped in among the legitimate cargo. Professional smugglers use all manner of technological subterfuge to slip their products past the eyes of the customs, law enforcement, or advocacy personnel. They will have counterscan technology, forged ship tags, dummy crates, or even concealed cargo holds to avoid detection. Slavers/sentient traffickers. Trafficking sentient cargo is a risky proposition. Even among criminals, slavers are generally regarded as scum. Even so, slavery still exists in corners of the UEE. Sometimes it's dressed up with names like indentured servitude, but it's slavery nonetheless. Some incredibly unscrupulous corps will hire slavers to recruit employees for sledge camps, distant mining settlements that use manual labor to dig through rock. Slaves are also purchased to fight in gladiatorial rings or for off-grid scientific experimentation. Slaves can come from any culture, human, Banu, Tavaran, or Xi'an. Some traffickers have even been known to abduct aliens from developing worlds. There are two phases to any slave's induction to servitude. Traffickers can handle one or both of these phases. First, they are snatched. This can happen in the largest city or the most remote settlement. Then they are transported. Different trafficking outfits have different methods. This will usually indicate how sophisticated their operation is. Some throw them in a cage like any other live cargo, while others will anesthetize their product and transport them in scan-shielded coffins. Sometimes tracking studs are embedded into their bodies, usually as a visible marker on the wrist. This is also encoded to their owner so that they can be easily located and also indicates that they are enslaved. Syndicates. Whoever said crime doesn't pay clearly wasn't thinking on a macro level. Crime can be incredibly lucrative if you have the resources not to get caught. Syndicates include any group of people bound together as a single entity for the purposes of crime enterprise. There are probably hundreds of syndicates of various sizes throughout the UAE. The largest syndicates can handle a wide variety of illegal services, such as drugs, slaves, and smuggling, while others are specialized, hit squads for example. Even though any group of like-minded criminals could classify as a syndicate, the name has a connotation of a mafioso-type organization in composition, influence, but not appearance. We have alluded to the existence of syndicates in the lore but haven't really included any, so the sky's the limit for your own fiction. Treat them like you would any other character and ask yourself questions about how they're able to function outside of the law. Do they own local law enforcement? Maybe they steal from other criminals. How public are they? Some syndicates want their name to carry weight while others prefer to stay out of the public eye and even criminal consciousness. Info agents. More of a personality than official position, a good info agent is the nexus of local news and information for his or her planet and system. They keep their ears close to the ground and their eyes open, trying to keep abreast of what's going on around them. Who's got work? Who's looking for work? Who's flying into the system? Who's on their way out? We have already described info agents in an earlier dispatch. Most pertinent to our discussion here, there are also illegal ones. These shadowy information brokers are the local fixers for the criminal element. They can either represent a local syndicate or they can be freelancers, but these are the info agents to talk to if you're looking to make a smuggling run or you've got some boosted product to offload. The Tabarin in crime. We will dig into how the Tabarin became fixtures of the criminal underground at a later date. But for the time being, if you see one, more often than not, they are, have been, or know someone involved in the criminal element. Nightlife. Fortunately for humanity, we still have booze. There are barrels of scotch slowly aging in Croshaw, Sauvignon Blanc grapes growing on vines in Davian system, and beer fermenting on Terror. So that's one thing we've still got going for us. On the narcotic side, there are still legal and illegal drugs. Overtly harmful drugs, particularly those with no medical application, fall into the illegal category. Popular drugs. Stems. Legal drug, composed of various combinations of tobacco, caffeine, and mood enhancer. Smoked as a cigarette, cheaper knockoff brands are sold as packs of individual smokes, while higher-end versions have electronic cylinders with replaceable cartridges. Slam. A fear inhibitor and painkiller, most likely ingested as gas. Vials of slam are cracked and inhaled. Initially gained popularity as a steroid for athletes before going black market. Heavy-duty slam junkies are easily identifiable in public. They have the shakes, involuntary muscle twitches. Important to note that this is not a sign of withdrawal, simply a side effect. Widow. Thick, ink-black opiate, exclusively injected as a liquid. Extensive use stains the veins black, creating a web-like subcutaneous pattern throughout the body. Neon, club drug, similar to ecstasy, slight hallucinogenic, affects the nervous system. Color, street name for a tranquilizer and knockout hallucinogen believed to be Xi'an in origin. Looks like flakes of bark. It's lethal in heavy concentrations. Many who try injecting it die immediately. It's meant to be ingested. The digestion process distills it to where it just messes you up. Getting colored is like taking a massive journey into your own mind. To the outside world, you're nearly comatose. but to you, it's a wild trip. A handful of religions have been started after a user took a dip in color. Aside from the toxic element, there's a chance you won't come down from the high. They call this getting disconnected. Users stay locked in their own head until their brain decays. Thieves' cant, or slinging that slang. Some claim that thieves' cant originated as early as the 16th century. While the information listed below is more slang than cant, it's not unlikely that enterprising criminals would devise a system of words to use to allow conversations of an illicit nature to occur in public settings. Cathcart Dialect. For our new guests, Cathcart is a junkyard system used for decades as a dumping ground for the UEE's trashed and demolished ships. It became a haven for refugees, criminals, and anyone else who wanted to stay off the grid. Over the years, these inhabitants pieced together and repressurized fragments of old starships to create a floating home. More and more people began to arrive and built on this original structure, ultimately creating Spider, the massive structure somewhere between an orbital platform and a planet. It's even withstood bombing runs from the UEE military. The dialect first appeared in the last flight of the Seraphim story. Here's a sampling. Wheeze dropped from metals and such, Vic slurred in a thick Cathcart accent. His tiny eyes looked over Haraway. What have you? We don't have anything, Haraway said. The pirate didn't like that answer. Scrum don't chaw with the Bedouin, although we gonna spatterfon. Vic pressed the gun against Haraway's skull. There aren't established rules for the dialect, but let's take a look at those two lines. The first is just a simplified method of speaking. The dialect was born on Spider, where there isn't a lot of public education, so the slang has lost most tense distinctions and some helping verbs. Like most accents, the thicker the dialect, the longer the person has lived on Spider. The second line was meant to be impenetrable, mostly for dramatic purposes. The idea was to make the character Haraway out of his depth. Having him threatened with an intentionally confusing line made him feel more helpless and the situation more terrifying. But that doesn't mean it wasn't written without meaning. Scrum. Similar to scum, it refers to a person for whom you have no real affection. I'm calling you this because I don't like you and don't regard you as much of a person. Chaw. A version of don't mess with, tangle, or toy with. Bedouin. This was odd, but was supposed to be a version of us. In this context, he's referring to us, the pirates who have guns to your head. So the translation of the line is basically, biatch, don't mess with us here. If it helps, the rolling cadence was meant to be an exaggerated version of a very thick Creole accent. Other slang. Here's a sampling of other slang words that have appeared in various dispatches and their meanings. Anti-Laz, a verb. Contraction of anti-Lazarus, any method of murdering someone to prevent the possibility of medical resurrection or repair, such as shooting an ejection pod. Coined by Aral Cobb, an ultra-religious hitman. See also empty casket. Dingo, the dookie shoe, the butt. Sample sentence. Can you believe this? As I was running, the cop shot me right in the dingo. Drift, verb, move away, get out of. Usually used in a dismissive manner. Sample sentence. Why don't you drift and let the adults talk? It's also a noun, to float aimlessly in space, also used as a way to describe nomadic life in space. Sample sentence. Probably should have let him know his merchandise was out on the drift. Empty casket, noun. A term for murdering someone to prevent the possibility of medical resurrection or repair. Also, see anti-Laz. Ghost, to kill someone. I ever see you again, you're ghosted. Roust, verb, to raid, to rob. Sample sentence. 6 ships passed armed to the teeth. Somebody was getting rousted tonight. Skag, noun, idiot. Some other fellow. Also see skiff. Sample sentence. Some skag came by and tried to rob my ship. Skiff, noun, slang for another person, primarily used to describe a person who is actively flying a ship. Sample sentence. The second I hit the system, I had some skiff on my tail. Tag, noun, registration tags, the info that comes up when your ship gets scanned. Sample sentence. I had some dirty tags so I couldn't land. It's also a verb, getting identified, scanned, and logged into a system. Sample sentence. I know the cops tagged me before I hit the jump point. Or if you want to get real crazy, Kilo got tagged before he got his new tags. Writing criminals. Crime and criminal life is always fun to write. There's something intoxicating to the imagination about it. Whether you like rogues with a moral code, gritty, desperate thugs, there's something in it for everyone. As with any story, ask yourself questions about the characters to build their backstory and motivations to the life of crime that they live, and just stay true to that. As far as language and slang goes, don't worry about adhering to the above list. There are no hard rules in this universe. Its sheer size and diversity means that there can be all sorts of slang. Most of all, the language should be fun. Speak it out loud several times to hear how fluid it sounds. Part of the reason slang develops is because it's an easier way to convey something. Sometimes it's born out of the local environment or history. Other times, it can come from vids. So as always, trust your instincts and tailor it to fit within your story. Questions. Question. Couple of questions for next week's guide. With regards to the advocacy, what is their internal hierarchy like? I'm guessing that Army/Navy recruiting will be similar to how it is now. But what about the advocacy's recruitment and training process? As for the Bounty Hunters Guild, how does their ranking system work? Do you start off as Class F, get limited jobs, have to work your ass off to get promoted to Class E, etc.? Pretty much any additional information on BHG and the advocacy is appreciated. Answer. We haven't determined how the Bounty Hunters Guild will work. There will probably be some sort of rating/reputation system. In the tracker dispatch, we mentioned entry and silver levels, insinuating that there are probably bronze, gold, and maybe platinum, etc. But we haven't firmly tackled this issue. If there's a specific question you have for a story, let me know what it is and maybe we can figure something out. The advocacy recruits from the police and the military. It's a grueling process, as being an effective agent is part tracker, part combat pilot, and part social engineer. For the advocacy, here's a rough pass on ranking structure, without getting into multiple divisions within the advocacy or forensic science departments. This is the standard advocacy agent career path. Special agent, supervisory special agent, assistant special agent in charge, spec agent in charge, assistant section, section chief, deputy assistant director, director, high advocate. That's it for this week. As always, leave your comments and questions below. We're not sure what topic to cover next week, so we'd like to hear from you. Is there anything you'd especially like us to cover? End transmission. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Your comments and feedback are always welcomed. Links to the actual writer's guide are included in the show notes. All music is courtesy of the Star Citizen's unofficial soundtrack, also in the show notes. This is Alyciana, signing off until next time.